Welcome everyone as we hit the top of the hour, 1 o'clock here Central Time. Appreciate all of you taking time out of your busy schedule to participate in our Zoom event today, previewing Private Lands Partners Day 2021 and 2022. My name is Steve Jester. I'm the Executive Director of Partnerscapes, and Partnerscapes, formerly Partners for Conservation, has been involved with this meeting since 2008, and it's for those of you who have not attended, I think it's the most unique meeting that in the conservation space. It's the only national gathering of partners and landowners to talk about issues of collaboration, public-private partnership, to hear the challenges others are facing across the country, and opportunities that we all have to work together. So we were pretty disappointed that we were not able to have Private Lands Partners Day officially this year. It was scheduled for Oregon, where we're going to be going in 2021, and we'll hear from Oregon in just a minute, but we really didn't feel like the Private Lands Partners Day experience translated very well to a virtual event. So as our small attempt to at least acknowledge that this is a time of year that we would normally be together talking about public-private partnership, we decided to host this Zoom event to let the next two host sites in 2021 and 2022 talk about what they have in store for us, or partnerships around their states, to kind of give everybody a flavor of what they might see come October of next year, or October the year after that. We do host this meeting in a different location every year. We've been from Maine to California and from Montana to Florida. We haven't hit every state, but we are working our way through them just as fast as we can. We're really excited to be able to come to Oregon next year, and Arkansas the year after that. So without any further ado from me, I'd like to introduce Callie Davenport, who's with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service Partners Fish and Wildlife Program in Oregon, to introduce his team of presenters and talk a little bit about what we might expect in 2021. Take it away, Callie.
Thanks a lot, Steve. Yeah, as Steve was saying, we were intending to have this here shindig in Oregon this year, but COVID had some other plans for that. So that said, we do have some of the planning committee members on. Pardon me for actually looking the way my monitors are set up. The camera's one way and the monitor's another way. So I'm going to try and look at you guys all and straighten into my camera as I do this. But I'd like to introduce some of the planning committee folk that are on the call. Dirk Renner is with the Fish Wildlife Service Partners Program. Dirk.
Hi, how you doing? I'm Dirk Renner. I'm the Central Oregon Partners Program located here in Bend, Oregon.
Thanks, Dirk. Julie?
Yeah, hi, my name is Julie McSwain. I'm the Partnership Liaison in Portland, Oregon with the NRCS.
Thanks, Julie. And I don't know if Paula is on or not, but if you are, let me know. if you can log in. If Paula's not on, I will speak on her behalf.
I just let her in, Callie.
Oh, okay. She's being fashionably late. That's good. Well, I won't put her on the spot, but another Partners Program person, our regional coordinator is Paula Golightly. She's also on the thing, and she'll pop in eventually. She is our regional coordinator in our regional office here in Portland. But other planning members include our PFC Partnerscapes board member, Jim Bob Collins, who's a landowner and, like I said, Partnerscapes board member out of Mitchell, Oregon. Eric Hartstein and Greg Cianella from the Oregon Watershed Enhancement Board. Taylor McCroskey from the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife, and Jan Lee from the Oregon Association of Conservation Districts. Also sitting in on our planning group is Amanda Mathis, who you'll hear from a little bit later from Arkansas, as well as Nicole Adamy, who is the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service Partners Program Regional Coordinator out of Atlanta. In addition to that, and Julie will talk a little bit about, a little later about a subcommittee that is formed. As I mentioned earlier, with COVID kind of taking this 2020 opportunity away from us here in Oregon, we've kind of created a new subcommittee, and Julie will introduce the folks of that subcommittee in a little bit. And the subcommittee is just kind of, like I said, we're working on some things in the interim between now and in October 2021. So stay tuned with that. With that, I'll start up my PowerPoint here if I can get the whole share screen thing going on and do it correctly. Hopefully. I'm going to presume you all can see that. So, like I said, the planning committee's come a long way. We were on our way and on a trajectory. We've been planning since the Utah meeting in October of 2019, and got ourselves pretty well underway through the earlier parts of 2020. Got all the way to May, and things were not looking as great as they should be with COVID propping up around the country. You know, like all things COVID, the planning committee were taking in information all along the way and assessing some of the, you know, contract deadlines and et cetera to come up. And we finally kind of hit a deadline where we needed to decide whether or not we were going to move forward or postpone. And ultimately in May, the planning committee came up with the decision to postpone, and you mentioned that to Steve, and he took it to Partnerscape's board, and they went ahead and voted on it to postpone the event to 2021. And so I wanted to first and foremost give some props to our Arkansas counterparts who you're going to hear next for graciously bumping their event to 2022 and allowing us to take their slot in 2021. So thank you, Arkansas folks. What you see up here, while most of the things have essentially stayed the same in our planning. As you can see, the dates that we originally had are still up here because I just recycled an old PowerPoint, and some other things have changed. But
Kelly, I'm going to jump in on you real quick.
yeah,
We can see a kind of both slides. I think if you hit start presentation, it'll be a better viewpoint for us.
oh, all right. Let's see. So you're not seeing the PowerPoint?
No, we're seeing the slide with the animations both on it and your previous slides for upcoming
All right.
slides.
Let me see if I can do this. Apologies for all this stuff. Is that better?
I just see you right now.
You're not sharing the screen anymore.
Oh, all right. Well, this is part and parcel to technology right
And
here.
there we go. Oh, you had it for a second.
Oh, all right. Let me try it again. Better? Or no?
Still just see you. Oh, wait, now it's going. Now I see it.
Are we good?
Good. Sorry about
Yeah,
that.
I love technology, folks. As I was saying, now that you should be able to see the old days, the old dates that were originally slated was October 6th through the 9th. And like I said, things have changed now with COVID. And really the take home message was just to show that the fact that PFC is now Partnerscapes and the dates are actually October 4th through 7th, 2021. So that's really all that's changed in our world. I guess we're now kind of fortunate to have 2 years of planning. So we probably should have a pretty good experience for y'all when you come out to Oregon. Just to give you a little perspective of where we are where we're planning on having the meeting in Oregon. This is a little, if you're not familiar with the geography of Oregon, It is Redmond, Oregon is just north of Bend, as noted there on the map. And I just want to make some reference that Hawaii actually, since I did use a recycled PowerPoint, Hawaii really isn't just off the coast of Oregon, but we just want to make sure that folks didn't realize we hadn't moved the state of Hawaii that close. So, and that's also there in Redmond is where Eagle Crest Resort is, and they'll be our host for the 2021 event. Getting to Redmond, Oregon. Redmond does have a small airport, but they do have several airlines that do come into Redmond from various places, as you can see there. And at the airport, there will be rental car companies that you can rent from. And we do believe that Eagle Crest will have some shuttle buses that will be able to shuttle folks back and forth from the airport to Eagle Crest. It's about a 15-minute ride. If for whatever reason, flying into Redmond would not work for you, the Portland International Airport is 3 hours away. It is a nice drive. It's a longer drive, but it's a very beautiful drive. That's another option for you to get to Redmond. And I'll have the website address here. I'll put that in the chat a little bit later. But we'll be staying at Eagle Crest Resort. There are several options of lodging at Eagle Crest. Just wanted to throw in there that there is a 100-room hotel on site just adjacent to the main conference center, and that's where most of the activities will be held. And there's a number of very beautiful condo options that can also be rented at the property, and they're just across the road and around the property. Most are about a 10 to 15-minute walk from the conference center. And as we understand it, we believe that there will be shuttles running amongst the property and may shuttle folks from the condos to the conference center also. So if the condos look like an opportunity for you to take in, I would highly advise it. They're really, really awesome. But that said, I would also encourage everybody that if you're considering coming out to Private Lands Partners Day, you should probably consider getting something reserved fairly quick in advance. Staying in the Halloween theme, here's a quick skeleton of our agenda. And this is as far as we got to when we were planning in May. As you can see, I don't expect you to kind of read all of this stuff, but there is a lot of TBDs on there. That's primarily because that's where we've gotten to, and they're still TBDs, but as we continue to pick things back up with our planning committee, we'll hopefully have that all filled in. And just want to let you know that there's, it's a 3-day event, 2.5-day event with an optional day on Thursday. So our first evening will be Monday evening, day 1. It's arrival, registration, check into your hotel room. We usually have there's usually a social event first evening with a keynote, some type of keynote speaker that we'll have. And that's kind of a TBD. We're hoping to get a hold of the Warm Springs tribe to possibly have them come in and either give a keynote welcome to the event or whatever works, but it's all somewhat TBD at this point in time. So that said, we'll also be having at this point in time, both the silent auctions and live auction events. It's part of the tradition at Private Lands Partners Day that on the last evening there'll be a silent auction or a live auction and silent auction. So those items will be on display for folks to bid on. And with that, I'll get it turned over. So that's day 1. I'll get it turned over to Dirk for day 2 and our tour.
Hey, thanks, Callie. So for our tour, the theme is going to be water conservation and fish in the high desert. There's a lot of different actions that have been going on in the upper Deschutes, which includes, the Metolius River, the Deschutes River, and the Crooked River. Crooked River is what you see running right by Smith Rocks. And a lot of the stuff that we've been doing has been tied to efforts to restore anadromous salmon and steelhead to the basin. These efforts, have included everything from on-farm conservation and piping of irrigation canals to conserve water in the desert, to restoring fish passage past dams, and large efforts to improve habitat conditions in the different tributaries. This work's been done with multiple NGOs, local, state, federal agencies, and of course, all the collaboration with the private landowners. This work's being done locally in the Deschutes Basin, just one of many partnerships around Oregon that we're hoping to highlight during this first day. We'll have different people discussing at various stops, the different partnerships going on elsewhere in Oregon. Some of the different collaborations that we have are Upper Deschutes Partnership, which will be highlighted. And we've got Warner Basin Aquatic Habitat Partnerships, John Day Basin Habitat Partnership, High Desert Partnership, East Marine Salmon Superhighway. We've got the Deschutes HCP Habitat Conservation Planning efforts. We've got the Southern Oregon Forest Restoration Collaborative and others not listed. I know Callie is going to provide some links to these different partnerships in the chat if people are curious about what else we've got going on. So that's going to be a big focus the first day. The tour that we're going to be going on, we're going to be starting there at near Redmond at Eagle Crest Resort. And then we're going to be heading north to the Metolius area. There's Lake Billy Chinook up there, and we're going to visit the Pelton Round Butte complex. Then we'll head out toward Prineville to the east, visit some stuff going on there with some wetlands that they've been developing. And then we're going to head west out toward Camp Sherman and the Metolius River and through the town of Sisters. And then finally, we're going to finish on at the High Desert Museum for dinner and the banquet that night. Also wanted to point out on this map while it's still up is there's a little yellow star out by Mitchell, and that's where the optional tour is going to go on Thursday out to Table Mountain Ranch and look at some of the efforts going on there in the John Day watershed basin. So next slide, Kelly. So this, one of the primary stops is going to be the Pelton Round Butte Dam. This dam was built in 1964. It was completed to provide hydropower. This dam and its associated re-regulating dams downstream provided fish passage at the time. But due to the surface water dynamics, juvenile and migrating smolts for salmon that were trying to move downstream to the ocean couldn't find the outlet. So as part of the FERC relicensing of the dam back in, I want to say right around 2000, PG was required to find solutions to help restore anadromous to the upper basin. So if you go to the next slide, they installed what they call the selective water withdrawal. And this is a $110 million plus facility that was put in to change the surface water dynamics at this reservoir. And it also captures fish. So all fish that are moving through the reservoir are captured into this surface water withdrawal and then manually transported downstream below the dams. Yeah, I will save some of it for the conference. It'll be pretty interesting still, but this is just kind of a taster of what, primary drivers. This was kind of the keystone element for the rest of the tour. And that's driving a lot of the conservation in the upper basin. So with this, it changed the flow dynamics, and we'll touch on this in much more detail during the next October. But if you look at the map real quick, what was happening was the Deschutes and Crooked River, which are coming in from the southeast, are much warmer than the Metolius River, which is coming in from the southwest. And so the flow dynamics were that the surface water, which is where the smolts are migrating, actually flowed up the Metolius River arm of the reservoir, and the fish couldn't find their way to the spillway. With the SWW installed, they were able to now change the surface flow dynamics, and fish could find the way to the spillway and start out migrating. So once we had that issue fixed, we started stocking smolts back up into the upper headwaters. And as part of that, we needed to restore flows, improve habitat, help with irrigation, a whole suite of actions that were prioritized to make sure that the conditions in the tributaries were beneficial for the fish. So next slide. Other stops we're going to be making will be out toward Prineville, where they've done a tertiary water treatment facility, which is a large wetland complex that's adjacent to the Crooked River, upstream from the Smith Rocks State Park, which you've seen several pictures of as part of this Oregon Day. And also as part of this Prineville Wetlands, we've been working with local school groups, Discover Your Northwest, and the city of Prineville to establish pollinator gardens to help with pollinator species, and namely the monarch butterfly that migrate through this area. Next slide. After the Prineville stop, we're going to head out through the town of Sisters, up toward the Metolius River, which is a spring-fed river and a major tributary to the Deschutes. And since it's October, it should be peak season to see redfish in the river as we do a short walk along the banks. We'll see kokanee and sockeye. The kokanee are fish that have moved up from the reservoir, and the sockeye are actually salmon that have come back from the ocean and are spawning in the Metolius River. We'll be giving talks at some stops along here to highlight other partnerships that's going to be occurring. After the Metolius, we're planning on heading towards Sisters, where there's excellent mountain views. Maybe not this mountain view in particular, but there's amazing views of the Three Sisters from the town of Sisters. And we'll be discussing conservation efforts, water conservation. There's been big piping projects. Some of it was done with ARA funding back in the 2009, 2010 era, but we're still ongoing piping projects to conserve water for fish and also ensure stream flow and irrigation certainty for the agricultural operations in the basin. So we'll be stopping near town of Sisters to see some of that. After that, we're going to be heading towards our final stop. Yeah.
Julie was going to hop in real quick on right here at this same stop.
Oh, absolutely. Thanks. Sorry, Julie.
Hey, it's all good. I promise I will be brief in my remarks. So at this viewpoint that Dirk was just talking about, there's some really good potential for some of our NRCS employees to help tell some stories of the good stuff happening in Oregon. And as with other states in the country and other former tours that we've had with Private Land Partners Day, is that local work groups are very important. Collaboration, conservation, partnerships are very important. And in Oregon, we've had some really wonderful successes with several conservation programs and collaboratives, such as RCPP, as well as Joint Chief projects. Back to you, Dirk.
Yeah, thanks, Julie. Yeah, good to hear about all the different conservation efforts. So the final stop before returning to Eagle Crest will be at the High Desert Museum for dinner and the banquet. This is a local natural history museum that offers numerous exhibits of local historic and prehistoric experiences. They have dioramas and walkthrough exhibits, and they also have a live animal desertarium that has everything from desert tortoises to rattlesnakes to other amphibians and spiders and insects. It's really pretty cool to walk around. I believe we'll be able to walk around these exhibits before the banquet. They also have live otters and a bird of prey exhibit out on the property there. Additionally, our partners program just this year is installing a pollinator habitat out there to help educate the public regarding pollinators. And we're still working on them, exactly what different exhibits that will be available to the conference, but I can guarantee it's going to be a pretty cool and memorable experience. So, yeah, I'll pass it back over to Julie.
Thank you very much, Dirk. So one thing, a new spin that we've added on to the planning committee efforts this year is we've developed an outreach type of marketing group, and our members include Dana Bevins from U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. We've got Kat Bailey from NRCS, Lauren Bennett, Callie, Dirk, Paula, and I. And there are so many amazing conservation collaborative stories that it's really mind-boggling to try to put an agenda together. So because we have so many cool stories to talk about. So what we see and what we foresee perhaps in this next year is throughout this next year, telling different snippets to hopefully entice all of you to want to come to Oregon. And eventually you're going to want to go to Arkansas. So we're going to have a lot of fun. Stay tuned. There's going to be more coming. So as you can see on this slide, there's a lot of fun that's going to happen at these private lands partners days. So back to you guys. Thank you.
Thanks, Julie.
So the day 4 is the additional tour day. So we're planning on an optional tour out to the Table Mountain Ranch, which is Jim Bob Collins' place. This will be an extra that folks should be able to sign up for during registration. It's likely to be limited to 1 or 2 buses, so space will be limited. So if it's something you're interested in doing, please make sure you sign up early for that. It'll also help us with our planning efforts, knowing how many people are interested. This tour is going to head east from Redmond, out over the Ouachita Mountains, into the John Day River Basin. We're going to probably have stops that are showcase forest management, both fire prevention and juniper removal. That will stop to look at partners projects on the ranch that abuts the Painted Hills National Monument. So that picture of the Painted Hills will be right there, right, and people should be able to stop and see that area. And it will then it'll head up to Table Mountain Ranch, Jim Bob's place, to see the restoration work, water conservation, fish habitat, and habitat work that Jim Bob has been doing and been part of. And I spoke to him earlier today, and he's really excited about that. He's planning on providing a catered lunch, and he wanted me to make sure I highlighted that he will have beverages for folks. So it's going to be a good time, and we're excited and hope a lot of people can sign up for that event. Thanks, Kelly.
And so lastly, I'll hop back in here. Thanks, Dirk. Thanks, Julie, for your input on that and help. So if you, that's kind of a pretty good overview of the Oregon shindig here. But if you, you know, there's always the opportunity to come out a little bit early or stick around after. We've got oodles of stuff to do here in Oregon. Obviously, as I'm seeing in the chat, you know, John Schmidt would be remiss to not bring his fly rod out. So I had to put a little picture of John Schmidt down there in the lower left-hand corner fly fishing. So, but got an opportunity to bring the fly rod out, do it. There's lots of good hiking opportunities. We got Crater Lake is about a 2-hour, little bit over a 2-hour drive to the south of Bend and Redmond. So that's in the upper left-hand corner there. Nearby outdoor activities that are near the town of Redmond are both the Smith Rocks State Park is in the lower center, and then the Tumalo Falls is in the upper center. And if you're anything like me, and I would, I can't bloody well leave without talking about how proud of Oregon is of our the agriculture that we have here in Oregon with both our barley and our hops that we have growing here. So apparently you can make a beverage out of that. And we've done that really well here in the state of Oregon, to the point of where we have, if you stick around, there's an ale trail. You can even do a little hiking on the ale trail. So with that said, I'll finish up with the Oregon talk here. And we all hope to see you next year in Redmond.
Thank you, Kelly. We're going to hold questions for till we're through with both presentations. But if you do have questions, go ahead and feel free to type them in the chat as we go, and we'll get to them at the end. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Ted Fishlock. I'm sure I butchered that, Ted, even though I've been practicing it for the last 30 minutes.
That's close.
From Arkansas Game and Fish, and let him introduce the Arkansas planning team and what they have in store for 2022 and some of the partnerships.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Like I said, my name is Ted Zavishlock. I'm the statewide private land supervisor for Arkansas Game and Fish. I'm also the current chairman of the Arkansas Private Lands Alliance, which is kind of our group that's putting on this event. Is there a problem, Steve? Oh, okay. So anyways, I'm going to introduce kind of our planning team. Not all of them are on this particular call, but these are the folks you're going to hear during the presentation. So Becky McPeak. Becky, are you on here?
She was on earlier, Ted.
was
She
on
might have
earlier.
jumped
Yeah, I'm
off.
here. I'm here. Sure, here.
Like I don't see her video.
I'm here.
Okay, there she is. Okay, and then we also have Bubba Groves with Arkansas Game Fish Commission.
Oh, Bubba's here.
Okay, we have Kelly Buffkin, who's a Farm Bill biologist with Quail Forever.
Hey, welcome everyone.
We have Jonathan Baxter, who is the Partners for Fish and Wildlife State Coordinator for U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service in Arkansas. He is also the Vice Chairman of this Arkansas Private Lands Alliance.
Hello, everybody.
And then we have Nicole Hardman, who's the Executive Director of the Illinois Watershed Partnership.
Hi, everyone.
And finally, we have Amanda Mathis, who's the Assistant State Conservationist for Partnerships with USDA NRCS.
Hello, everybody.
Okay, so let me see if I can share my screen now and get our presentation going. Okay, can everybody see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so as the current chairman, I guess, of this Arkansas Private Lands Alliance, which I'll kind of go into kind of what that is here in a second, it's our pleasure to highlight some of the highlights about Arkansas and this Arkansas Private Lands Alliance. So as you can tell, we're about 2 years out from when we have to do our particular event. So we're not going to have quite as much detail on tour stops and that kind of stuff. We'll have some general ideas of that kind of stuff. But what we thought we would do is kind of highlight Arkansas in general, because we'll only be in one portion of the state when we do host this. And so we're going to talk a little bit about some of the partnerships also that are going on in Arkansas. So like I said, we do have a lot of partnerships in Arkansas, and so hopefully this will kind of give you a little teaser for 2022. So kind of start with this alliance. The alliance was formed in 2009. We kind of laterally formalized it in 2018 and kind of got it registered as an official, I guess, nonprofit organization. We have about 17 members, and we represent 19 different agencies and about 6 nonprofit local entities. And so you can see on this slide here where there's several federal agencies, there's a bunch of state agencies, and of course a bunch of nonprofit local entities, the watershed groups, and that kind of stuff. So what is the purpose of this alliance? So when we first got together in 2008, our goal was basically just to kind of share private land ideas among other private lands professionals. It since has expanded. So now our goal is basically we want to improve communication among the agencies and organizations that help private landowners. We also do cross training on private lands programs, for our staff. We share landowner success stories. We recognize landowners and professionals, private lands professionals who have done, excellence in the private land realm. We also share successful on the ground techniques. And so as different groups, different agencies learn different techniques to do things better on private lands, we kind of share those ideas. And then finally, we generally always have a section on the Farm Bill. And so we generally provide updates on the Farm Bill, so to all our members. We do have a mission statement you can read there. That's kind of what we've recently adopted. So With that, I'm going to turn this over to Becky McPeak with the UA Extension Service, and she's going to talk a little bit about those prior collaborations we did starting, back to 2008.
Thank you, Ted. Well, Arkansas, we're actually a relatively small state compared to others. So many of us natural resource professionals, we cross paths with our counterparts while conducting projects and outreach, and we get to know each other. As you can see from this list, we have a number of various topics that we've used in the past, that we've done in the past. As Ted said, we realized over a decade ago that there was a lot of information that could be shared between our various disciplines and to improve our ability to assist private landowners. So we met every other year, and except for this year, because of COVID, we're planning to meet later in 2021. And you can just see there's a whole variety and list of things and topics that we have been covering. We've used a variety of means in order to train and to educate each other about best management practices and opportunities for working with private landowners. This includes field tours of farms and forests and grasslands, as well as some classroom training. And consistently, when we've done our evaluations, the feedback that we get from participants indicates that one of the most important reasons for this meeting is opportunities to network with others. We network while we're on the bus, over dinner, and all these opportunities has led to projects and partnerships that benefit landowners and other and our natural resources in the state. We look forward to getting back together once COVID's passed. And as you can tell, a lot of these things that we do is going to be very similar to the types of things that you'll be seeing when you visit Arkansas. Up next is Bubba Groves. Bubba is a private lands biologist with the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission.
Let me get unmuted. I don't want to go through this and have to redo it. So, yeah, thank you, Becky. I guess with this, we're going to try to transition into a little bit of what I guess the habitat types, if you will, of over the state of Arkansas. And being from the Delta, they let me lead off this, and we're going to start there. Of course, the Mississippi Alluvial Valley or the Delta, that's along the Mississippi River corridor. And one of the big things there is the agriculture production there. Arkansas produces a lot of soybeans, cotton, rice, corn, just like most all the other states do. But something that's unique to Arkansas is the rice production. We are the leading state in the nation in rice production, like I said, in the nation. So like I say, rice is very important to us. So Callie, if y'all run out of wheat and barley out there and y'all need a little rice, we can bring some with us when we come in 2022. We'll gin up some of that beer there.
Pretty sure we can probably use it.
So if you look at the top right photo, with ag being so important over there, one of the things that is just as important is water. Without our irrigation practices that we have, our farmers wouldn't be able to produce what they can for the country and worldwide, actually. So you see people with NRCS there. They actually installed a flow meter on one of the oldest rice farms in the state of Arkansas, the Mars Farm in Lone Oak. But we also do a lot of other innovative practices too, such as flow meters, tailwater recovery, pipe planter, so we can conserve water to the best of our ability so we ensure we pass this farming tradition down to our kids and grandkids, and you know, we preserve this for the future. With rice and ag production comes one of our other, I guess, highlights that's near and dear to Arkansas Game and Fish Commission. That's the mallard duck. We are one of the top, if not the top state in harvesting mallard ducks in the nation. And one of the reasons they follow this down is because of rice and ag production in the Delta. So if you look at I guess, kind of protecting that species, one of the things that we need to ensure is we have enough food to get them back to the wintering grounds in Canada. And right now, but primarily because of increased efficiencies in harvesting techniques and some of the farming techniques throughout the alluvial valley, we're looking at kind of not a deduction, but we're short on energy days for ducks to get them to the wintering ground. So 3 years ago, Arkansas AGFC, in cooperation with DU and NRCS, we started a pilot program we call the RICE program. where we paid landowners to just flood their fields and basically have rest areas for the ducks, and trying to, in effort to produce or provide more wintering feed for the wintering waterfowl here. Also, like I said, Arkansas is very important. Got a lot of out-of-state hunters that come here to hunt ducks. A lot of in-state people here too. It's a big business, duck hunting here. And so what we started doing is also leasing out some of the hunting rights on those fields and offering limited access to them through a permitted system. So we actually hunt on Saturdays and Sundays, and then we let the fields rest and let the waterfowl use that area as a feeding ground on Monday through Friday. So we're trying to kind of have the best of both worlds there. Then this past year, we've evolved that into, or submitted a proposal for a voluntary public access grant through NRCS, and we actually won it. Won 2.1 million, up from, we were spending about 150,000 of game and fish funds before. Now we're up to 700,000 a year in funding to lease fields out. We've gone from, where's my notes? Roughly 11 fields in last year, up to about 44 hunting locations this year, and really quite, I think, tripled our acreage, total acreage, if you will, through that funding. And so this offers a little bit of access to hunters, and you know, we hope that, or actually some of the stories we've seen, you know, show a lot of people that have never hunted before, and people with their kids that want to pass that tradition down. So it's not just hunting; it is kind of an R3 type effort where, you know, we hopefully conserving the resource there. Next slide. Staying along the mallard duck theme, another interesting, I guess, habitat type that we have here is flooded timber. The reason that the mallard duck and geese really started migrating here thousands of years ago is because of the acorn. And so we have many thousands of acres of green tree reservoir, which is basically flooded timber that the ducks are coming for, in addition to the ag ground. Arkansas can boast one of the largest GTRs. Again, that's flooded timber, 34,000 acre GTR by Almeda, WMA, that's located just outside of Stuttgart. Anyway, people come from all around the country to hunt this place all throughout the year. And there you can see kids, like I said, they enjoy shooting them. Top right picture, not quite as, probably, I guess, as big as the levee system on the, I can't remember the river's name there in Oregon, but that is a 150-foot water control structure. It is the largest water control structure on a GTR in the country. 18 gates, and that's what we use to flood that WMA with, to, like I say, for people to have access to it to hunt and control the water a little better. Bottom right, kind of shifting gears a little bit. As I said at the beginning, Arkansas, you know, in the Delta, the crop production is huge. So way back in the day, many wetlands were drained and converted to cropland. Well, NRCS has a WRE program where they purchase surface right easements to restore lands back to bottomland hardwoods and wetlands, and those easements are protected into perpetuity. Arkansas, I believe, last I saw, was number 2 in the nation behind Louisiana in acres enrolled in this. It's just shy of 300,000 acres. And between Mississippi, Arkansas, and Louisiana, we have just shy of 1 million acres enrolled in this program. And again, the beauty of that is it's protected forever. It can never be taken back out and put back in farming. And it's back to what it should have been, or should have never been taken out of. But again, a lot of deer ducks. We've got a lot of success stories on that. Louisiana black bear is one that's been delisted since this program. Also in Arkansas, we have the roseate spoonbill and king rail, which are threatened, and I guess they haven't been listed, but they're close, but actually have nesting success there, and they haven't been documented anywhere else other than the coastal marshes nesting, and we've had that here on our WRP sites in Arkansas. So with that, we'll switch over to the, I believe it's the coastal plain and Kelly Bucket.
Thanks, Bubba. So Like I said, my name's Kelly Buffkin. I'm one of the farm bill biologists with Quail Forever here in Arkansas, working primarily with private landowners to do wildlife management and help them navigate the various state and federal cost share programs. So looking on the screen here in the West Gulf Coastal Plains, this is just the western extension of the coastal plains found throughout the Southeast. But driving around South Arkansas in these coastal plains, it's not difficult to tell what the primary industry is down here, and it's timber, pine plantations in particular. This top left photo is a kind of typical of a, sort of a middle-aged, well-managed pine plantation. They're planted in rows, narrow rows, so they can grow tall, straight, fairly limbless. And what's going on here is it's not only providing income for the landowner with periodic thinnings and harvesting of that timber, but it provides actually another source of revenue for landowners through a lease program that they can lease these lands out to other people for hunting clubs and hunting camps. And it's a very important, not only cultural to Arkansas, but just, it's another revenue source for these working lands in South Arkansas. Many of these landowners are absentee, so that lease system works out really well. It's not just smaller landowners, and by smaller, I mean, 50 to 100 acres. Some of them have thousands of acres, but they're large private companies in Arkansas that hold hundreds of thousands of acres of these pine plantations that are scattered across South Arkansas. But it can be a little bit deceiving driving around down there because you may not see all the rest of the habitat types in South Arkansas. There's quite a bit of open pasture with working cattle ranches that gives us great opportunities for rotational grazing and even native grazing in some instances. But there's also wet prairies in South Arkansas. There are sand barrens and acidic seeps and all sorts of different, smaller micro habitats that, really make this part of the state pop in various ecological ways. But moving across the screen to the right side, South Arkansas historically was pine timber also, but much different than what you see today. It was, pine woodlands, pine savannas, primarily short leaf, kept and maintained that way by frequent fire regimes, whether it was lightning started or Native Americans starting fires. But really, really cool in the western part of the state or southwestern part of the state, we have these blackland prairies. And most of those are actually still somewhat intact because the edaphic features of the soil, just kind of maintained. If you talk to the people that own the properties with blackland prairie, it's not good for anything. They couldn't plant anything there. They can't grow trees on it. So it's actually maintained themselves fairly well aside from like cedar encroachment. So the West Gulf Coastal Plains, pine timber dominated, but what that means is it gives us great straightforward opportunities for wildlife restoration and to work with the private landowners down there. A lot of this restoration work can kind of be accomplished with chainsaws and drip torches. The suppression of fire over time has led to a lot of the degradation of the sites in this part of the state. And a little bit of drip torch fuel and chainsaw work helps actually give us great, fantastic wildlife habitat. So next slide, please. There it is. So moving back north out of the coastal plains and sort of west central Arkansas, you have the Ouachita Mountains. This is a really cool, unique part of the state. It's very rural, sparsely populated area. It's pretty mountainous, but it's not, that crossing back and forth typical kind of mountain look. These are a series of essentially parallel ridge lines that just run east and west. And as you can imagine, it creates these really contrast systems on the northern slopes and the southern slopes. Northern slopes with wetter, cooler climates, giving a little bit denser tree cover, mostly hardwoods. And that southern slope of the Ouachita is hotter, it's drier, it's short leaf pine dominated, and a much more open landscape. The species composition of flora on both sides of those mountains can be drastically different in some cases. There are a lot of endemic species to the Ouachita Mountains, including the Ouachita blazing star, which is one of my favorites. It's a Leacher species that grows near the ridge lines of the Ouachitas. But in the Ouachitas, on the Forest Service land there, they have an area called the Pine Blue Stem Restoration Area. And it's a part of the Ouachita Mountains that have been being restored for the last 30 to 40 years. And it's just a wonderful example of that Ouachita shortleaf ecosystem, frequently burned, thinned, open, kind of park-like timber structure. But Also, in the valleys of the Ouachita Mountain regions, you get these rolling hills, sort of open oak and pine savanna type ecosystems also, which, lend themselves to pasture. Cattle ranching is really important in this part of the state as well. But what we have, since that large landholding of the national forest and then also that private lands in the area, creates a lot of opportunity for overlap with partner work and private lands work. And it's been really special to work with people in that area. And so following up, we have Jonathan Baxter next with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. He's actually the coordinator for the Partners Fish and Wildlife Program. And there you go, Jonathan.
Thanks, Kelly. Like I said, my name's Jonathan Baxter. I'm the Partners for Fish and Wildlife State Coordinator here in Arkansas. And I kind of get the honor of talking about the Ozark Mountains, or the Ozark ecoregion, really, which is where this meeting is going to be held in 2022, the northwest part of the state. The Ozark Mountains are largely an intact landscape still. It's really rugged topography with expansive mixed stands of oak and pine forest with mixed glades and savanna, highly diverse species-rich streams with high plains and remnant prairies. But the historical habitat conditions have still degraded over time through urban expansion, contaminants, fragmentation, loss of ecological processes. Like Kelly mentioned, fire is a huge driver in the ecosystem, the ecotypes that we have. That's been suppressed over time. And then, of course, invasive species, which it seems like that's a problem that everybody has to deal with. Over time, that upland habitat shifted from that open woodland with fire-tolerant, rich herbaceous understory to with mixed open glades to an overstocked shade-tolerant forest lacking understory, and those open glades have been highly encroached with invasive red cedar. What's interesting about Arkansas, especially Northwest Arkansas, that a lot of people don't realize is that we love our chickens. You can go ahead and go to the next slide there, Ted. Just as diverse as the habitat is in the Ozarks, agricultural is highly diverse as well. Poultry is the leading agricultural industry in Arkansas, provides over 163,000 jobs in the state. Over 6,500 farms in the state produce some sort of poultry byproduct or product. In Northwest Arkansas, and particularly Washington and Benton counties, which you're going to hear more about here after I get done with this little spiel, and the location of Partners Day 2022 produces the most poultry and some of the leading counties for beef production as well in Arkansas. And so with all this agricultural and industry, how do we bring cohesion with the conservation community as well? And just like partnerscapes, the answer is working together and collaborating. So I'm just going to go through this next slide. It's got some pictures. I'm just going to kind of go through and give you all a brief 1,000-foot overview of some of the collaborations that we have going on. I heard Oregon mention some of the RCPP and Joint Chiefs projects. We have quite a bit of that going on, especially in the Ozarks up here. We have many nonprofits and interest groups that work together. For instance, this cave on the left, that's a Ozark big ear bat colony there. It's an extremely endemic, endangered bat that we have in the state. That's a city municipality that's getting ready to do some cave gates for that. This little lizard in the middle there, that's eastern collared lizard. It's only found in limestone sandstone glades in the Ozarks and into Oklahoma. But it's not doing very well either, just because of eastern red cedar and encroachment from that. So we're working with landowners to do commercial thinnings where they can get a little bit of income from the habitat restoration that's happening on the property. It's a good start for us to start working towards that historical ecological community. Another thing we have going on is that we can really hang our hat on is outreach and education. This picture on the bottom right there is of a prescribed burn association that we've put together up in the north part of the state. We've provided them with resources to improve capacity, getting fire on the landscape. And so these group of landowners can come together with equipment that we provided and training that we provided, and actually help each other maintain their habitat. We're a very rod and gun oriented state. And so getting habitat on the ground is is fairly simple. If we can just get landowners on board to talk about increase in availability of deer hunting. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Nicole Hardiman, the Executive Director of Illinois River Watershed Partnership, to talk about what's to come and really give you a more in-depth description of Northwest Arkansas.
Great, thank you, Jonathan. Yes, my name is Nicole Hardiman. So I work for a water quality advocacy organization up in the northwest corner of Arkansas, and I get to welcome you to Northwest Arkansas and to the Ozarks. I'm so excited to do this. So when you come to visit us, you'll be up in this northwest corner of the state here. We have Benton County to the north and Washington County to the south. And one of the theme for our event in 2022 is enhancing habitat through building partnerships in Arkansas. And as Becky mentioned, we're a pretty small state. There's not a ton of money flowing around at the city, county, and state level for conservation and restoration. So we really rely on our federal and state agency partners to get conservation done. That's how it gets done in Arkansas. I will point you out one particular kind of unique aspect about Northwest Arkansas, as we collectively call it, is kind of the urban ag interface that's going on right now. And this picture in the lower right hand corner here, this is a small cattle farm that I pass by every day on the way to work. And in the background here, you can see a 400-acre apartment unit that's going in right next door to the farm. In this area, we have the home offices of Walmart, we have the home office of Tyson and JB Hunt. And while we enjoy a fair amount of economic development and the amenities that come with that, we do have a very rapid rate of urbanization. They say 20 people a day move into Northwest Arkansas, and we're estimated to have another 500,000 people in the 2-county area in the next 20 years. And so we're really, at a crossroads in this area of making choices about preserving our natural or conserving our natural resources and preserving our farmland. Illinois River Watershed Partnership recognizes that if we have more farms, we likely have cleaner water, at least cleaner water compared to a subdivision or another strip mall that we love so much. As Jonathan mentioned, I will point out that in Benton and Washington County, so Benton County had a lot of oak savanna and prairie as its historic ecology. Down south in Washington County, you'll see the beginning of the Boston Mountains, that Ozark Mountain ecoregion that extends over to the eastern side of Arkansas. So we have a wide variety of kind of, micro ecosystems, which leads to a lot of biodiversity that we're working hard to protect in spite of all this urbanization. Ted, next slide, please. So one of the mechanisms that we are working to conserve our natural resources are through watershed partnerships. In the area, we are fortunate to have 2 watershed water quality advocacy organizations for the Illinois River, which is the Illinois River in Arkansas, not the Illinois River in Illinois. The Illinois River Watershed Partnership, who I work for, which works kind of on the western side of Northwest Arkansas, and then Beaver Watershed Alliance, which works to protect our drinking water source at the White River Watershed or Beaver Lake. And what these organizations are multi-stakeholder efforts to come to consensus-based solutions for water quality improvement. So my board, for example, is composed of 6 different stakeholder groups. We have agricultural interests on the group. We have conservation interests on the group. We have business. We have government interests on the group. And so it's really intended to make progress on watershed improvement and watershed management through voluntary, non-regulatory, and consensus-based solutions. So one example I often like to give is, I have Oklahoma Farm Bureau on my board, and then I also have a Cherokee Nation representative. So the Illinois River extends over into Oklahoma. So Cherokee Nation sits on my board. Those two organizations think of water resources in very different ways and manage water resources in very different ways. But when they come to an IRWP board meeting, we are talking about what we can do, what they can do to work together to improve the Illinois River. And with that, I will turn it over to Amanda with NRCS.
All right, thank you, Nicole. So again, I am Amanda Mathis. I'm the partnership coordinator within RCS here in Arkansas, and I'm going to talk about a few sites that we're hoping to be able to get you out on, like the Oregon team mentioned, and as you probably already seen from all of our quick highlight of the ecoregions in the state, we have a tremendous amount of partnership activities going on throughout the landscape. And so it is challenging to try and nail down a few. So we're just going to give you a teaser of where we think we're headed. We somehow managed to get ourselves another year full of planning. So we've got plenty of time to get these nailed down more firmly, but hopefully this will just give you a little bit of a flavor of what we're expecting to be able to showcase for you guys, in addition to the partnerships that Nicole mentioned. So our Discovery Farms program is something that we're very, very excited about and very proud of. And it's a really unique way for producers to tell their story. And what our Discovery Farms program really is it's researchers, conservation professionals, other stakeholders partnering with a working farm to look at the effectiveness of the conservation practices on the landscape. And so we often hear, especially in Arkansas, we hear a lot about the hypoxic zone in the Gulf of Mexico. We hear a lot of the nutrient loading being attributed to agriculture. But we were all standing around asking the question, well, how do we know that it's really coming from ag, and how do we quantify the impacts of the great conservation work we're doing? And so with some consultation with some other folks, I think in Wisconsin, that were doing something similar, the Arkansas Discovery Farms program was born. And so what we do, we go on to an actual working operation. We establish a water quality monitoring sites throughout that operation and look at the effectiveness of the conservation practices that are implemented, so that we're able to have that really edge of field data that we can use to talk not only about the effectiveness of the practice, but that the farmer can have in their back pocket to say, hey, I know I'm doing a good job, and here's the proof in the pudding, if you will. And so we're lucky to have over 12 Discovery Farm sites all throughout Arkansas, but we do have several up in NWA, as we call it. And so I hope that we'll be able to get you out on one of those farms so you can hear from the producer, from the researcher, talk more about how this whole Discovery Farms program has, what it's meant to the community, and what it's been doing for us as we tell our story about conservation. And I'm really even excited as things progress. Becky is standing up, that spoke earlier, Becky's standing up a wildlife discovery farm. So we can actually talk about, when we implement wildlife habitat practices, what kind of returns do we see for the landowner when it comes to economic opportunities, or even the conservation practices that we implement to help that? How does it benefit the wildlife on the landscape? So very exciting stuff going on with Discovery Farms, so we're going to get you out to one of those, we hope. Next slide, please. And so another area that we have a lot of work going on up in Northwest Arkansas is on some stream bank restoration sites. So Nicole mentioned our Beaver Watershed Alliance. Beaver Lake is a very large reservoir that's on the White River. That's a chain of hydroelectric dams that are on that river. And Beaver Lake is the first lake in that chain of dams, and it is the one that serves as the water source for at least 4 to 5 counties in Northwest Arkansas. So it's of critical importance that we have good water quality there. And we know that stream bank erosion can be a significant source of nutrient and sediment loading in the lake. And so there's a number of partner organizations that are working actively to reduce stream bank erosion, whether that's through riparian forest buffer establishment or like you see on the screen here, which is an actual stream bank restoration project that was headed up through an RCPP project that we have with the Watershed Conservation Resource Center, and then working with a number of organizations and private landowners to do some bioengineering along this stream and help reduce the erosion and sedimentation going into, in this case, Beaver Lake. So we hope that we'll be able to get you out on this site or others. There are several that have been implemented through that RCPP project, and let you hear about not only the water quality benefits, but from the landowner's perspective, you know, it's pretty devastating to see you losing land, physically losing land year after year. And so they see a lot of benefits to doing these practices as well. Next slide. And you heard Jonathan mention that Benton and Washington counties are home to a significant amount of beef production, and that's very, very true. And our beef production probably looks a little bit different than a lot of the rest of the Western states for sure. You know, we're a heavy rainfall state, getting close to 50 inches every year. And so when we talk about rotational grazing systems, we can almost get down to talking about how many cows per acre, not how many acres per cow. And as Nicole mentioned, there is a lot of urban encroachment on our pasture land farms. So we know that we have to be doing activities that are going to help them be as economically sustainable as they possibly can be. And one way that they can do that is through input reduction and efficiency gains. And we see that happen through the implementation of rotational grazing systems. And so we have, you know, not only NRCS and our programs, but Fish and Wildlife has programs to help fence cattle out of streams and establish other watering sources. Illinois River Watershed Partnership has programs that can help with that and also help with the riparian reestablishment. So lots of partners that are working in this field and helping us achieve good things. And the first picture there on the left, you see cattle grazing in some native warm season grasses. And Kelly mentioned a little bit about that we're seeing that increase in the Gulf Coastal Plain and Ouachita Mountains, but also up in Northwest Arkansas as well. And this helps producers not only from a wildlife habitat standpoint that we can see the benefits from the native warm season grasses, but also from a drought resiliency standpoint, because the native grasses tend to have much more hardy weather resiliency than our improved grasses. In the middle picture there, you can see what I have counted as about 50 some on head on a paddock that is about 10 acres in size. And hopefully you can see from the variation in color where this producer has this rotational grazing system set up. He allows the cattle into a very isolated spot for just a short amount of time and is using temporary electric fence to move them across this pasture. And so we'll get you out to see some of this on the landscape and talk to the producers that are implementing these rotational grazing systems, which have really proved to be that economical and sustainability decisions for them. And then that last picture is of a tire tank waterer. So this is something that we see a lot of interest in from our producers, where we recycle an old equipment tire and make it a watering source for cattle within part of that grazing system. And even though we have a lot of water in our streams, water for a rotational grazing system seems to always be the limiting factor. And so we've utilized a number of partnership opportunities to get programs in the hands of producers to help them establish those sites, offset some of the costs, and really set up those sound rotational grazing systems. So we'll get you out on those. And next slide, please. Also hoping to showcase some of the many quail habitat efforts that are going on in Northwest Arkansas. As we've mentioned, the timber that is currently on the landscape is very dense. Fire has not been introduced in the last many years. So we have heavily dense stands that really do not provide the type of habitat for bobwhite quail that we used to see many years ago. The bobwhite quail population in Arkansas has taken a nosedive really since the 80s, or maybe even a little bit before. And we're really working to try and reestablish those quail populations. My nephew is about 19 years old, and I was talking about doing some quail habitat work, and he asked me, he looked at me and he said, "What's a quail?" And I knew right then that we got a lot of work to do, because we have an entire generation out there that doesn't even understand the importance of the bird. On the flip side of that, we have an older generation that remembers going out and hunting quail all the time, and they want to see that back. So there is a lot of motivation for the work that we're doing in this area, and we have so many partners that are joining together to conduct it. Our Game and Fish Association has cost share programs that can help with quail habitat. Of course, through NRCS, we do as well through regular EQIP and our Working Lands for Wildlife program. But then we also have an RCPP up in Northwest Arkansas that is geared specifically at looking at quail habitat restoration. And then our Arkansas Natural Heritage Commission has some prairie sites within Northwest Arkansas that they've been doing a significant amount of restoration work on, as well as Partners for Wildlife. So looking forward to getting you out and seeing some of that restoration work, largely a lot of extensive timber thinning and then burning that goes on. And hopefully you'll be able to get a really good feel for the before and after by driving through the area and understanding what a lot of our timber looks like currently, and then how it looks after we do the implementation of the practices. And then, as Jonathan's already hit on, another thing that we're looking at as a partnership is really trying to equip our landowners with the tools and resources they need to keep this kind of habitat going. And one of the ways that we do that is through learn to burn workshops and burn associations, so that we can get more fire on the landscape. Arkansas is very fortunate. We are a right to burn state. And so we like to encourage that. And we have a lot of landowners that, once they see the incredible benefits to conducting prescribed burns, they get more comfortable with it, and they're very excited. So we try and get those learn to burn workshops out and get those resources in the hands of the producers as well. So hopefully that's given you a little bit of a taste for some of the field tour sites that we hope to get you out on, and whetted your appetite for that. And I'll turn it back over to Nicole to talk a little bit more about some other unique, more urban related items that we'll be showcasing as well. Nicole?
Sure. Yeah. So, one new initiative that I wanted to mention, and hopefully we'll have some interesting results from this new Northwest Arkansas Food Systems Initiative. This is a multi-million-dollar program backed by the Walton Family Foundation, which is really intended to grow the markets and the economy around local food production here in Northwest Arkansas. The idea being that the food is grown here, it's distributed and sold here, and it's eaten here and disposed of here, and really trying to build that closed loop food system for Northwest Arkansas. So our local land trust is helping out with the access to farmland piece of that. The Cooperative Extension Services Center for Arkansas Farms and Food is conducting a lot of trainings, and the Food Conservancy is a brand new organization working on the market development piece of that. So it'll be a really cool experiment to see what happens to it. And hopefully in 2022, it'll be an interesting case study to present. Ted, next slide, please. And with that, so I'm a Northwest Arkansas native. I told the group earlier I'll be like a one-person chamber of commerce for NWA, but we are so excited to welcome you here and to have you here. Some of the local attractions we have: the Crystal Bridges Museum of American Art, which is a phenomenal intersection of art. I think they say art, architecture, and nature. In Bentonville, Arkansas. We have the Buffalo National River. I would prefer that you stick around the Illinois River or the White River, but the Buffalo National River is beautiful, and it's the US's first national river. We have abundant hiking opportunities, hunting opportunities, fishing opportunities, boating opportunities on our lakes and rivers. And then up here in the upper right hand, this is Old Main at the University of Arkansas. I would be remiss if I didn't mention, check out the Saturday football schedule and see if you can make it to an Arkansas Razorbacks football game. Because if there's one thing that brings Arkansans together, no matter your political affiliation, it's an Arkansas Razorbacks football game. You're right, woo pig, there we go. Learn how to call the hogs while you're here. So I'll turn it back over to Ted, and thank you. And I'll look forward to seeing everyone in 2022.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. I think this hopefully kind of gives you a flair for kind of what the partnerships are and the habitat types are that are here. So I guess with that, I'll stop sharing and open it up for questions.
Thanks, Ted and team. Thanks, Callie and team. I don't have any questions that have come in on the chat, but if you have a question, feel free to unmute yourself and ask it, direct it to whomever you would like to direct it to, either Arkansas, Oregon, or somebody specific.
Well, I just wanted to start off by saying, well done, Arkansas. I'm looking forward to making it down there after we host in Oregon. I'll be looking to sample some of your local barley and hops and rice fare down there too.
Yeah, Callie, I think me and you usually make that an annual tradition.
We do.
Yeah, we can certainly, I'll certainly host you in that event.
Fantastic. Thank you, brother.
Got a question in the chat from Susan in Nevada. Do you expect the events will be capped for a lower number of participants than normal? Has this been discussed at all? And you know, I know that I know Oregon is still under a cap of number of people that can gather. I'm assuming Arkansas is still under COVID-related restrictions on gathering, but I'm at least for me, I'm hopeful that by the time we get to this time next year, that will be less of a concern. But I don't know that we're going to know for another 6 or 8 months, Susan. I do know that one thing that my board talks about a lot is even when the restrictions are lifted, how long is it going to take people in general to want to get out and travel again and without being concerned? I know there are people on our board where you do a lot of traveling, and you know, I have a feeling that a number of them are not going to want to go anywhere for some time, even if they could go tomorrow. So I think I don't know that we'll still have caps when we get there. I think we may have to look at ways to allow people to be involved if they don't want to travel in a way that we haven't done before, just to make sure that everybody feels like that wants to, that they had a piece of the experience. But it's a good question, but still I would put that one in the unknown category. Did that address your question, Susan? If not, unmute and get more specific with me.
Oh, hey, I got a background on. That's weird. I don't even know how that happened, but yeah, that was great, Steve. Just kind of curious how everybody's navigating that potential.
Yeah, I know for us, we are looking at sort of remote participation and virtual participation as a part of what we do going forward, regardless of COVID. I think you know, just like this opportunity today, probably give an opportunity for folks that attend this Zoom live or that see a recording, an idea about the event, and maybe a incentive to get there that might not ever be exposed to it any other way. So not at the depth of that both Oregon and Arkansas presented here about, you know, why you would want to come and what you might see. So I know for us, this is going to be a part of what we do going forward, no matter what else happens with travel or anything else. And hopefully it's not what we do all day, every day, like it seems like many of us are doing now, but we do think it'll be a part of the mix.
So are you saying that you expect part of the actual event to be available virtual?
I think we're sure going to have to look at it, unless unless we get a turnaround on people's attitudes quicker than we're anticipating, that we will try to find a way to let people participate virtually, whether that's, you know, through Twitter, through Zoom, sending snippets of video throughout the day, trying to have something where people can, you know, live stream the presentation days. I don't know what it'll look like, but I think it's certainly that something that both planning teams would be advised to consider, just sort of as a supplement. And I think the idea that Callie and the team in Oregon has about sort of creating a flow of stories throughout the year of partnership that we can amplify, and hopefully others that are interested can amplify, that are interested in public-private partnerships. I think that will, you know, that in and of itself will be helpful and let people feel more part of the action that may not be able to go. So I'm looking forward to helping to see how we can help with that effort as well. Any other questions from the floor?
Hey,
Well,
Paula, did you want to come off mute and say hi to everybody? You got to come off mute there.
Hi, everyone. I'm the regional coordinator for the Partners Program. Sorry, I jumped on a little bit late, but we're sure excited and hope that we can have everybody in Oregon. It's going to be a blast, and that area is so beautiful. I spend my personal time vacationing out that way too. So
Thanks, Paula.
well, I want to extend my thanks to everybody that presented on this call, that's on the planning teams in Oregon and Arkansas. Those of you that took time out of your day to tune in, and folks that look at this recording after the fact, and also want to thank those in Oregon, those in Arkansas, and those all across the country for the great work that you continue to do, the relationships you build, and the partnerships that you have developed, both with each other as conservation partners, but also with your landowners and your local communities. The country needs you. The country needs what you do. And I, for one, are very much appreciative of everything that you try to get done every day. So with that, thank you all again for joining us. And if you'd like to learn about future Zoom opportunities from Partnerscapes, sign up for our newsletter. We try to keep them all posted once a month in that. So thank you. Have a great afternoon and stay well, everyone.